Assalamualaikum guys, welcome back to Chai and Clinical. So we are going to cover pituitary gland now. So very important thing that you need to know is that pituitary gland actually has two important parts, one being the anterior pituitary gland and the second one being the posterior pituitary gland. So anterior pituitary gland is basically derived from the oral ectoderm, which is also called as the Reticular pouch. So the direction of its growth is going to be upward, and then you have the embryological origin for the posterior pituitary gland, which is the neuroectoderm, and the direction for its growth is going to be downward. So it's going to look like this: the upward growth from the oral ectoderm, and then the downward growth of the neuroectoderm makes up the pituitary gland. So we're going to be discussing about the cells that are actually the hormones which are basically being produced by the anterior pituitary gland. For this, the mnemonic FLAT big is really important. FLAT representing the FSH, LH, ACTH, and TSH. PIG is going to be representing prolactin, and then G is representing growth hormone. The word I and the pink, you have to memorize this. Why? Because the acidophils are basically pink in color, right? Pink or purplish in color. So we are going to actually memorize this by pig being pink in color, acidophils representing growth hormone, and prolactin. So they're acidophils in nature. Now you need to also know about this very important thing called pro-opio-melanocortin, which is a very important protein. It basically splits into three components: ACTH, melanocyte stimulating hormone, and then beta endorphins. We will be discussing this in future as well, but these two are very important, and there is a correlation to them. We will discuss that later on. Okay, so a very important thing is that you need to know that there are two types of cells: acidophils and basophils. So acidophil cells basically are seen as pink cells on the histology slides, and then there are basophil cells which basically seems as purplish bluish cells on the histological slide. So B flat, FL, FSH, LH, ACTH, and TSH. And then you have PIG, which is representing prolactin and growth hormone, being the acidophil cells. Pro-opio-melanocortin derivatives are basically ACTH, MSH, and beta endorphins. Then very important thing that we need to know is the hormone structure: alpha structure and beta structure. So alpha structure of follicular stimulating hormone, luteinizing hormone, thyroid stimulating hormone, and HCG. These four have similar alpha subunit, but how are they differentiated? With the help of this beta subunit, which determines their specificity. Now what you're going to be seeing is, after discussing the anterior pituitary gland, we're going to be discussing about the posterior pituitary gland. So anterior pituitary glands basically produce their own hormones, whereas posterior pituitary glands do not make their own hormone, but they do release it. The two of those are ADH, which is antidiuretic hormone, and then oxytocin. They basically get these from the hypothalamus. So there are two nuclei: supraoptic nuclei and paraventricular nuclei. Supraoptic nuclei mainly produces ADH, but it also does produce oxytocin as well, whereas paraventricular nuclei mainly produces oxytocin and a very small amount of ADH as well. So how are they released? So these hormones are going to be binded with proteins called neurophysin. These are called as the carrier proteins. So with the help of axon, they basically move from hypothalamus to the posterior pituitary gland, and these hormones are carried with the help of protein called the neurophysins. Clinical integration is that if we do not have ADH, then there's going to be central diabetes insipidus if it is not being produced by the hypothalamus. If it is not acting on the receptor, then it is going to be the nephrogenic diabetes insipidus. If oxytocin is dysfunctional, oxytocin is very important for the labor contraction and also milk ejection. So these two are going to be the ones, these are the two processes that are going to be affected the most. Then